Hi everyone, how are we doing? If you're new here, my name is Rodian and today I'm going to talk about the 8 bricklaying tools that every beginner should have. If you do enjoy the videos I make, please do think about subscribing down below. It goes to help massively what I do on this channel, and with that being said, let's just get straight to the video. Before I talk about these tools, there are going to be links in the description to all the tools I'll talk about in this video. So if you do want to look at pricings or perhaps purchase some yourself, then there will be links down below. They are Amazon affiliate links, so if you do decide to purchase through those links, I will get a little cutback, but Amazon will be giving me that cutback and it will cost you guys absolutely no extra whatsoever. Also, I do have some new Marshalltown tools that I will be talking about very briefly in this video. These have been supplied to me by Marshalltown and the Rollins Group. If you are interested in checking out those two companies, then I will leave links to their websites down below. So I would just like to say a big thank you to Marshalltown and Rollins for supplying some of these tools. We're going to go on to the first tool, probably one of the most important tools. In fact, these are all important, but the most important in my opinion is the brick trowel itself. This is what you use to get your mortar onto your wall and use the end to tap your bricks down into place, and also use to butter up the bricks when you put them into place. There are multiple different what are known as patterns. The pattern is the shape of the blade. These are both what is known as a Philadelphia pattern, very wide base and it goes up to a point. On screen I'll put a diagram of some various different patterns. Now when it comes to pattern, there's no one pattern that's better than the other. It all comes down to personal preference, so it's completely up to you. Now in regards to brands, like I said, I am a big fan of Marshalltown. I've used Marshalltown pretty much my entire career. I have tried out some other trowels, but these are the ones that fit me perfectly. When it comes to buying, I would suggest going to a brick merchant or a builder's merchant and just getting a feel for a trowel, hold it in your hand, see how it feels. Failing that, order it online. If you're not 100% happy with it, just send it back. Most places will allow you to send it back within 30 days. So just hold it, see how you feel and go from there. Brick trowels generally they can cost anywhere from £5 up to about £80. This particular one, when I bought it, it cost me, I think it was about £60. If you're planning to just use DIY, I would probably say Marshalltown is a little bit overkill. Marshalltown is a professional grade product and it will last a long time. There are a lot of budget options out there. Like I said, you can buy a trowel for about £5. If you're using it for DIY only, I'd say they'll probably suffice. But if you want to do a little bit more, like build your own garage, build your own extension, I would probably say go for a bit more of a pro grade. So I will leave in the description links to these trowels that I use, and also I will put down a link to a budget option. I will do the same for all the tools I talk about in this video. So that's just briefly touching on the trowels. I am going to do a more in-depth talk about this trowel in particular because it is a new handle. It is what's called a Duracork handle. The handle I have on my existing trowel is what's known as Durasoft. So they are very slightly different, and I must say that this is also a different size to the one I'm used to. So I'm going to say that this is it's already shaping up to be my favourite trowel over this one. But I will do a video of that more in depth later. So if you are interested in seeing that, please do think about subscribing and clicking the bell icon to get notified every time I upload a video, so you don't miss out that comparison and review of this trowel. Okay, so that's trowels. We'll move on to the next item. Well, the next tool you're going to be using a hell of a lot are spirit levels. Now I have 3 different sizes here. These 2 are made by a brand called Stabila, and this one here is made by a brand called Ox. Now I personally think Stabila is the best brand you can get for levels. Pretty much, in my opinion, anything made by Germans is pretty much, you ain't going to go wrong with it. This level here I have had since I was an apprentice, and now that was sort of going on about 13-14 years ago. So, and it still reads true, it's still perfectly good. This level here is the second level I ever bought, and I have had this for sort of probably about eight years or so, and it still reads perfectly true. I have made a video about how to check to make they show true, which I'll leave in the description, but that's a little bit off what we're talking about now. I would suggest, much with the same with brick trowels in any of the tools here, you pay for quality. If you want to buy something cheaper, then go ahead. It probably won't last as long and it probably won't read as true. You're more likely to break it. Whereas if you pay a bit more of a premium, you will get a level that will last you a long time. Like I said, this level has lasted me since I was an apprentice, and I can't see me replacing it anytime soon because frankly I don't need to. This cost me about £35 back in the day. And like I said, very levels vary in size, much the same as brick trowels, and you get various different lengths. This is a 600mm, this is a 1.2 metre, you can get 1800, which is a 6 foot level, and then you get a small 300mm, which is what is known as either a boat level or a torpedo level. Now, some people have slated me for using a torpedo level. I like to plumb up 3 courses of bricks using a torpedo level. Some people say that's not what you should do, but much the same with a lot of things in bricklaying, personal preference. Every bricklayer works differently. So I have found that this trio of levels has done me very good service over the years, and I will continue to use these 3 levels. I have very rarely used a 6 foot level, but it does come in handy. I would probably suggest, in my opinion, I would say Stabila is the way to go when it comes to a pro grade level. Stanley also makes some very good levels, and Ox do some good levels. I have only used the torpedo level, so I can't say for the longer levels, but this has stood the test of time for me so far. I've probably only had this about a year, but it is a very good level. So just in reflection, I would probably suggest, personally, for DIY, I wouldn't spend any less than say 20 quid on a level. If you do want one that will last you a long time, I would highly recommend Stabila. I personally wouldn't use any other level apart from obviously the Ox for the boat level. I didn't really have the option. I needed a boat level at the time when I bought this, and the only one I could get my hands on at that time was an Ox. So it has served me well, but on the whole, Stabila all the way for me. Like I say, Stanley makes some good levels. Okay, so that's levels. We'll move on to the next item. So the next tool in our tool bag is a jointing iron. Now, I have 2 different types here. I have a barrel jointer, and I also just have a regular standard jointing iron. These are both made, all 3 of these are made by Marshalltown. Again, Marshalltown did send me this jointer to use. I have never used this one before, so there will be a review of this coming soon. So again, thank you Marshalltown and Rollins Group for sending me this to test out. The jointing irons that I'm most used to, which are just the standard jointing iron, they come in multiple sizes, but the size that I personally prefer and have used the most is a 1/2 inch and a 5/8 inch. I do have a smaller one here, which is, it doesn't actually have the sizes on it. Either that or they're rusted over. There is a sticker on here, but anyway, they do come in multiple sizes, but I would recommend the one that I find perfectly suits is the 5/8 and the 1/2. The barrel jointer, you can interchange the barrels and you have 4 different sizes. So essentially you have 2 different jointing irons in one. It sort of reduces your kit a bit. So I'll be looking forward to trying this out. So again, thank you very much for sending me over this jointing iron. Right, so the next tool we're going to talk about are lines and pins. Now, in regards to pins, I'm using footprint pins. You can always tell that they're footprint ones because they have a foot stamped on the top of the pin itself. I have never used anything but footprint. Now, the reason I like footprint is because they have a wide pin. You don't want one of these which is quite skinny, otherwise when you put it in the brickwork it's going to fly out. Because of the price of pins, I would say I wouldn't even bother trying to find a cheap pair, because the cheap ones have the fact that that pin is a lot skinnier. So I would recommend footprint all day long. Again, links in the description. In regards to lines, I use 2 different types of lines. IMEX, I find a fantastic daily driver lines. I have spoken about lines before, so there's in the Bricklaying for Beginners playlist I do talk about lines in there, but I use IMEX and also Marshalltown. They're very close to each other in the best lines, but I'd say the IMEX just take that edge, but Marshalltown are still fantastic lines. So with lines, they're there so that you can put lines up between either end of your brickwork, run the line through, and you use that to measure, to lay bricks to that line, which measures it out, and you get a nice perfect line, which means you don't have to level it with a level. All you do is you lay to that line, it's a hell of a lot quicker. So lines, I would suggest IMEX or Marshalltown. Now, the next tool I'm going to talk about is pointing trowels. I have here a Marshalltown London pattern pointing trowel. I find, again, Marshalltown to be the best and the one that I'm most comfortable using. Like I said, I've used Marshalltown a lot. And again, thank you to Marshalltown and Rollins for sending me this over. Now, you can get different patterns for your pointing trowel. Like I said, this here is a London pattern. You can also get pointing trowels in a Philadelphia pattern, but obviously they're not as large as this. They are a lot smaller, but they do have that wider heel as opposed to that skinnier heel on the London pattern. These are used for pointing in weatherstruck pointing on your finished brickwork, or also getting into very tight small spaces. I would suggest, it's completely up to you. I have both a London pattern and a Philadelphia pattern trowel. I find that I use the Philadelphia pattern trowel a little bit more than the London pattern, but they are both very good to have in your toolkit. Again, with most of everything, I'll put a link to this particular trowel and also a budget version down in the description. So there we go. Pointing trowel is also a very important part of the toolkit. Right, the next tool I think every beginner should have is a tape measure. Now I have 2 tape measures. I always have 2 tape measures. One is just your standard normal tape measure that will read feet and millimeters on it. Nothing special about that. I just particularly like the brand Stanley for my tape measures. So any tape measure will do the job really. But I also have a more specific tape measure called a Fisco Brickmate. Now this only has millimeters on it, but it also has the gauging for brickwork and blockwork, and it will tell you that on there, on the blade. Now this is very, very handy for marking out and setting out buildings and extensions, and also for using as a gauge rod, because it does have the gauges marked on it, so you don't have to make up a gauge rod. So I use this a hell of a lot. I use this brick tape more than I use a normal tape. This is if I'm just sort of doing something that doesn't involve brickwork, like maybe cutting a bit of wood or measuring how far away something is. But generally I'm using my brick tape because being a bricklayer, it works perfectly with the trade. So I would suggest just going with the just going with the normal tape, unless you are doing something along the lines of, like I say, an extension, a garage, maybe even a garden wall. In fact, I would definitely suggest using this for a garden wall, because it means you can measure out how many bricks you're going to need and then therefore how many high you want to go. So I would definitely suggest getting a brick tape if you are going to be doing a lot of brickwork. But also just the standard tape would work perfectly. It just means the brick tape just does help save a lot of time. Okay, and there we go, there's tapes, and we'll move on to the next tool. Well, the next tool in the toolkit is actually 2 tools, but I like to class them as one. Is a club hammer and a bolster. Now you use these for cutting bricks and knocking down walls. You do also have cold chisels as well, but I would suggest you don't really need a cold chisel if we're talking about a very basic beginner toolkit. This is what you're going to be using to cutting your bricks and cutting your blocks. A nice 2.5 pound club hammer. You don't have to go too mad with the club hammer. I have a relatively cheap one here, it's about £10. But the one thing I would say is these don't last very long because of the wooden handle, because of the way that it's connected to the lump hammer itself, the lump head itself. I've had these snap on me a lot of times. I would suggest, if you want one that's going to last you a long time, Estwing are pretty much the go-to hammer. In regards to the bolster itself, as long as it's drop forged, it doesn't really matter what brand you get. Footprint makes some good ones. Pretty much a lot of companies make good ones, but like I say, I'll be linking these down in the description. But yeah, in regards to the hammer, if you're using it for general DIY, then go for the handle with wood. The wooden handle is fine, but if you want something that's going to last you a long time, get an Estwing. I did have an Estwing club hammer and also a claw hammer. However, my tool bag got stolen a couple of years ago and I just haven't got around to replacing it. But anyway, so there is a club hammer and bolster, very important part of the toolkit. With these, I would always suggest using PPE, goggles, dust mask, and ear protection if you are cutting. But in regards to just using these, I would 100% say at least use your safety goggles. PPE always save your sight, your hearing, and your lungs. So yep, there we go, hammer and bolster. And now with that, we're going to move on to the last tool in our basic toolkit. So the final tool we're going to talk about in our basic bricklaying kit today is the soft brush. You use it to brush your brickwork off after you have pointed it to give that nice finish, get rid of any of that nasty residue. I would 100% suggest getting a soft bristled brush. You don't want a hard bristled brush because it will knock the mortar out of your joints. I personally like using a large one like so. You can get ones that are half the size with a handle. They are handy in smaller areas, but generally I'm building larger areas, so I like to use the big brush just to get over it a lot quicker. But like I said, that can be detrimental at some points if you're trying to get into a small area where a smaller one is better. So depending on how often you're going to be doing brickwork, get both, but I would say the bigger one is better than just having a smaller one. But again, it's down to personal preference. So that will conclude us in our 8 bricklaying tools that every beginner should have. Now I do understand that there are a hell of a lot more tools that should be in your toolkit, and I have done an in-depth talk about what is in my toolkit. I'll leave that link down below in the Bricklaying for Beginners playlist. So If you believe that there is something that you should take out of this toolkit and replace instead, just for the very basic, understand the very basic 8 tools you're going to need to lay bricks. If there's anything that you disagree with, anything that I've missed, or anything you would swap, then please do let me know down in the comments. I always love hearing you guys' opinion. And from there, I'll probably say that's it for today. So please do leave a like down below if you've enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you aren't already. Ring that notification bell to be notified every time I upload a video. Remember, bricks laid, wages paid, and I will see you guys in the next one. So take care, and I'll see you then. Ta-ra.